Well, you did the eval, right?
We did the eval. Yeah,
Okay.
that was good.
Okay.
I enjoyed that very much.
Good.
Um, got
Mm.
what got what I was looking for out of it. Right? It's
Yeah.
like what what can you change? I wasn't looking for a good report. I was looking for these are all the things that are wrong. I know most
Yeah.
people don't do that, but I was glad that there was a number of things that were addressable. Anyway, so we're gonna
Good.
start on Saturday was when we could get in
Okay.
to start. So
Gotcha. Did you guys do the catching stuff too, or no?
yep,
Awesome. Perfect.
yep,
Mm.
yeah. No, it's good. It's good. I like JJ. He was good. I met Max quickly.
Yeah.
Um,
He was
it's
stoked,
cool.
dude. He's a big Canes fan. So
Yeah. Yeah. Cool spot, man. Reminds me of like where I used to train when I played. Like it's got a real tough gym feel to it. Rocky Three.
kind of grindy in there.
We're going to Tough Gym,
Yeah.
like downtown
Exactly.
LA.
Rename it. Tough.
Light bulb hanging.
That's kind of the feel, man.
Yeah.
You
I
know, they
trained with
said
a
it aren't the best, but we're working on that.
no, I don't change it because if you're looking for all that other stuff, you're looking for the wrong stuff. Like that becomes
True.
part of your brand.
Yeah.
I trained with Matt Nickel, one of the best trainers in the world. Like this guy's trained everyone from like England rugby to like Russian weightlifting,
Yeah.
NFL guys. And we used to work out in this back room of like this old arena from like the 1950s.
Okay.
It was gross and it had everything we needed, right? But like that was it. Like if you're
Right.
looking for like all of this, like all the fancy whistles and
Lifting
stuff
demand.
and
Yeah.
aromatherapy, you're at the wrong gym.
Definitely not aromatherapy. There's none of that going on in there.
How are you, man? You good?
I'm doing well, dude. I appreciate you doing this with me.
It's my
I
pleasure.
can do it on in person. I would love to have done it at Caribou where we tend to
Oh,
have readings, but
dude, no, I'm happy to do it
yeah,
to support you. You're doing great stuff,
trying to.
and I support people I like. So it's not show business; it's show friends.
I like that. We're gonna
If you
roll with
keep it show friends,
that.
if there's anything I've ever learned,
Yeah.
uh, don't do business with anyone who could benefit from you.
That's true, man. I like
Right?
that. Yeah.
It's got to be worse for them than it is
Yeah.
to not.
I like that.
We can start
That's
the podcast with that.
Yeah, that's we're gonna open and close with that. I think that's it. No, that's fantastic, dude. Well, again, dude, I really appreciate it. This means a lot to me. I have valued so many of our conversations that we've had, and you've helped me through so much. I can't begin to thank you enough, especially going through, tough times at the end of my playing career and
Yeah,
finding, someone to talk to.
sure.
It's always difficult, I think, too, man. Like we'll talk about it as we go, but the world of psychology, and you can kind of hit on this before we get going, is I feel like it's almost become similar to social media where it's like you have things everywhere and it almost at least from what I've heard, it's hard to find like true relationships with somebody that, because it becomes transactional. It becomes like, oh, I see this therapist or I see this person or I do that. And
Mhm.
it's really hard to find somebody that actually values the relationship and doesn't make it just a,
Mhm.
hey, here's my 45 minutes. I'm out, pay me now. You know what I'm saying? So I think the relationship that we've had, and obviously it goes beyond, you helping me. Um, it's been pretty cool, especially someone like yourself that has had a history of sports and kind of understand that's rare too, right? Like for you to be a very high level athlete and then to go into what you've gone into, that's a very, very rare combination, you know?
Yeah. Well, dude, I have to say, thank you very much for sharing that. What you just shared is why I do what I do. So
Mhm.
that statement means as much to me as it does to you saying it. So thank you.
Yeah, of course, man.
We're in it together, bro. Cool.
I like to
Hey,
be an honest person, so just full
I, I
transparency
do
there, man.
I do know this. I do know this about you.
Yeah, something like that.
Uh, all right, I'm gonna
Oh, go ahead.
because this
What?
is official. I'm gonna change my name to Doctor if that's okay.
Yeah, you can. Hey, do what
And
you got to do. Dr. J Harrison.
that's it.
Put former NHL player and doctor.
All in the
I mean,
tagline. How about like how
who's
long
got
do you think the name could be? How funny would that be?
just as
If you had
many
like a
titles?
paragraph in there,
Yeah. Yep. Like there was a guy that would always like sign off on emails. I'm not gonna name who, but it was like former MLB player and this and that. It's like, come on, man. Like we know who you are. Like, why are we doing that?
That it's quite revealing about his athletic identity, isn't it?
Yeah, we'll talk about that too, man.
We
Is
call that identity clinging.
uh-huh. Where you just can't. Well, that's I know we're kind of not going through the script here, but you know, at what point does it become clinging, and then at what point is it like trying to benefit, future endeavors or ventures? Like how do you
Hmm.
separate those two?
Well, I would say, yeah, I guess I'm being rather superficial and judgmental in that case because that
I don't
distinction
think
is made
so.
internally,
Yeah.
right? If that's to affirm my position, opinion, value, and worth to you, I need to consistently remind you of what I used to do,
Mm,
right? Rather than, hi, I'm former professional athlete. And through my athletic experience, I learned X, Y, and Z, which now puts me in a great position to do X, Y, and Z.
right.
To me, there's a more integrated way that you can leverage your athletic experience and identity, rather than superficially and somewhat almost self-consciously and almost there's a what's the word I'm looking for? But there's like a anyway, the word escapes me, but it'll come to me. Don't worry, this happens to me all the time. Too many concussions. Um, insecurity
Yeah.
that I have to continually remind myself of that, or like that's when it becomes cling, it becomes difficult to let go of or integrate into the new self,
Yeah.
whereas the old self benefits the new self,
Mm. Like okay, so for
right?
someone like me, like I try not to talk about it. I think it helps in the business that I'm in, from
Hmm.
experience, but I I almost feel uncomfortable at times like saying it. And I don't know if that's because I didn't have the career that I thought I would. And I got, injuries and didn't pan out the way I thought I should have, right? Like is that is that something that I deal with like from an insecurity perspective of almost like the opposite of I don't want to discuss it because I don't think I lived up to my expectations, or what would you say there?
It sounds like you answered your own question pretty good there. Not uncommon,
Yeah,
but probably right. There's a hesitation to use it because there's a fear that it'll be used against you. Well,
mm,
you didn't go very far. You didn't play long enough. What did you
yeah,
do in the game? Right. So it comes from, I think, a good place of groundedness and self-humility, right? But sometimes in that microscope of self-humility, we forget to see the broader landscape of what you did relative to most people who try to do what you did,
sure,
right?
right.
And objectively, you were successful. That's not a subjective thing. Oh, well, I could have done X or Y. That's subjective.
That's like my own.
Objectively, of
Yeah,
all the boys who put a ball in their hand and desire to throw it past people in a batter's box, you are successful,
pretty simple
right?
there. Yeah,
Pretty simple. You're in the top probably 2% of people who ever choose to spend time developing that particular
yeah,
skill, right? So
yeah,
objectively, that makes you unique in and of that, and it becomes from a more integration and acceptance that you know, and making peace. Sometimes it can be difficult. I lived through that personally because I'm like you too. Like it's interesting. I go through your script there. Like the first three things are like playing. Like I didn't think once when I was preparing in my mind for what Bobby might ask me relative to this podcast. I didn't think of one thing related to me actually playing hockey.
mm,
And you could say, well, that's interesting. You've clearly moved on. But like, Jay, you're clearly leaving some important details about your experience of what makes you awesome behind you.
yeah.
Like, you scored on Marty Brodeur.
Hell yeah.
Like that's kind of cool.
Pretty freaking sick is what it is.
Right. Right. And I'm like, oh, I forgot that for like, I haven't thought of that in 5 years.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
And so it also speaks to like this idea and this rebuilding of who you are, this metamorphosis that happens when you align, new passions and new directions I can talk about all those things, quite freely and quite, openly, and um, but they generally aren't tied to my core purpose or representative of what I'm capable or what I'm excited about today.
Hmm.
That's, I guess, the difference. And, you get to that at various times. Some guys never do. That's why we see this identity clinging. Sometimes we also see the opposite of clinging is fleeing,
Yeah.
right? So sometimes if I didn't have the career that I wanted, or I
Get
didn't
away.
think much of my career, fuck it, I'm gone.
Yeah.
I'm not thinking about it. I'm not talking about it because that's not me. I'm
Right.
so much more, right? And I went through that too. Like that's a very normal way of how we handle, that cognitive dissonance. But if that's the pinnacle of who you were and you never thought or can't get excited about doing anything else, well, that's inherently problematic because you've lost that proverbial scoreboard.
Yeah, no, that's really well said. It's kind of like the guy in high school that was like the star quarterback, like the movies, where, they stay in the hometown and they can't, do
Yeah,
anything after it, right? It's just at a higher level. Um,
it's it's really interesting. So for NHLPA,
yeah.
I run a book club.
Oh, nice.
So
The Great
every
Gatsby?
Yeah, so every quarter we do three books. We do a classic, we
Okay.
do a narrative nonfiction, and then
Yep.
we do just like something that's just like light and fun and conflict. All of it is supposed to pull the thread of like the masculine experience,
Mm.
right? It's all supposed to be like, what does it mean to be a man and contemplate on our own identity and our
Yeah.
own journey, right?
It's
But
like a
like through
wise
three,
book club kind of. Is that what you're
yeah,
saying? Yeah,
yeah, it's
yeah.
Tough Guy Book Club. If you've ever heard
Yeah.
of Tough Guy Book Club, it's based on that,
Okay.
right?
I like
So
that.
in The Great Gatsby, there's a
Mm.
character named Tom.
Yep.
And I'm pretty sure it's the first reference in literature to a guy struggling with his athletic identity. He was a football player at Yale.
Mm.
And it alludes to like the sorry sight of a guy who peaked at 21
Yeah.
and never been able to come to grips or replicate it again.
Right.
And I comment on that because it's like I think it's the first sign of someone struggling with their athletic identity and transition captured in literature, but also explains why he's such a resentful, bitter prick.
Mm.
Anyway, Great Gatsby, there you go.
I like that.
Not
Just
just for eighth grade
spark
anymore.
notes. Yeah, spark notes right there. I love
Yeah.
that. It's funny. Well, one thing I'll say kind of to that, you said something that, whenever I think of that, Max actually he gave me this, and I didn't even realize this. When it comes to players in MLB, um, if you got every player of all time, you would still have a lot of empty seats in PNC Arena,
Yeah,
which
that's
is
so
pretty.
true.
Yeah, which is kind of crazy to think about. Because I mean, the game of baseball has been going on for however freaking long.
100 years. I believe we did it in hockey, which doesn't probably have quite as many players, maybe similar.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure the number of players who have ever played in the NHL is still under 10,000.
10,000. Wow,
Yeah.
that's incredible.
And
How long?
guys who go on to play more than 250, it's like 3,000.
Yeah, and that's what I always think about. It's like there's levels, even when you get to that level. Like there's levels to that level, right? It's like you have the guys that are just kind of the guys that are shuttle, right? AAA up to the big leagues, back
Yeah.
and forth, and you get a cup of coffee, that's whatever. You have some guys
Yeah.
that make a couple years, and you have guys that make it 6, and then you have the pinnacle of guys that make it to full pension at 10 years. And it's really incredible to think about how hard and how difficult that is. And it's the same thing in the NHL, I'm sure. It's like for
Yeah.
guys that stick around and stay, I,
Yeah.
it it's almost mind-blowing to think about. Like they're in, like
Yeah.
you said, 2%, they're in like the 0.0001%.
Oh yeah, they're in the 5% of the 0.0%. I always look at it because the benchmark that we generally use in hockey, games played, is a pretty good indicator of how relevant you were. Not necessarily like because there's different metrics of being good, right? Like you can have goals and assists and all these things, but generally speaking, if they're putting you in the lineup every day,
Yeah,
that means you're relevant to whatever job you did, whether you played 7 minutes or you played 25 minutes, whether you scored 50 goals or you scored five. There are guys who scored 5 goals a year who played 1,000 games,
right.
right? So it's
Yeah.
like that true like establishment. We'll cross this year in the league. We'll cross 400 players in the history of our game who have played 1,000 games. 400.
That's
The
incredible.
fastest a guy's ever played 1,000 games is 14 seasons.
Who was it? Was it Gretzky?
Jay Bomeister did it the fastest.
Okay.
Defenseman. I played with him in junior. He's
Did you?
actually he's younger than me. He just recently retired. But yeah, like never hurts. This guy's playing 82 every year, just like bam, 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 right? Like,
Yeah.
you play 10 82 without missing a game, like you're
Oh,
still you're
yeah.
still not there. You're only at 820,
God bless, man.
right?
Yeah.
So,
What do you think? Like, how do you? And I know we're not really going off script here, but like, what? How do you? Like, what? What is like that innate trait that people have that allows people to do that? Is it there's some luck involved? Is it just like the will to power through anything? Is it what is that? Because that to me has always been like I was saying, like knowing, playing with guys that have played 10 plus years in MLB, it's like, how the hell are you able to do that? I feel like I played at a pretty high level, this, that, and the other, but it's completely different. What is it that allows people to do that?
I think it's a confluence of factors.
Yeah.
I think it actually probably ties nice to the book. If you're meant to, you will,
Yep. That's like that is
right?
the whole. We'll talk about the boat, but like when I was reading it, it's like I think that quote is probably used. I don't know how many. Do you know how many times it's been used in that?
In the book,
Yeah, in the book, how many times
well,
was
yeah, very, very specifically, I
every
use
page?
it. Well, the idea, yeah, is to
Mhm.
hammer the damn thing home.
Yeah.
I think, there's obviously these individuals have the innate capacity and talent,
Right.
right? There's also a physiological and psychological hardiness in all the right ways. It doesn't mean they're resilient in every aspect of their life,
Hmm.
but certainly their character styles, personalities, and behavioral dynamics are very strongly aligned to what's expected of them in the professional athletic environment. It doesn't get old to them. It doesn't get
Yeah.
tiring as it does to a normal person. The constant expectation, evaluation, um, need to bounce back, the determination, the compete level. These are all things that are somewhat table stakes for these people. They just come to them, more naturally than you would, see in another person. So you combine this, potential that they have, the gift of their athleticism, and you combine it with the behavioral orientation that's strongly aligned to thrive in this given environment, right? And then you add it with a physiological hardiness, right? That, let's just face it, they don't get hurt that much.
Right. Yeah.
There's a little luck involved in that, but mostly it has to do with how you play the game too. It's no different in baseball. How you throw the ball is a greater indicator of getting hurt than anything else,
Hmm.
right? Same way, how you play the game is usually a pretty good indicator of how you get injured. So that they tend to manage themselves better,
Right.
and they tend to grow with the game. I think we see this as well. Part of that character style, if you extend it a little bit, is I found athletes, between 28 and 32, as I call it 30 plus or minus two, we come to an inflection point in our life. Like, what
Hmm.
am I doing here? Where are we? Who am I? What is this all worth? What does this mean? Right. And then as those athletes tend to get to that point, continuing to pursue professional excellence in their sport is strongly aligned with the answer to those questions. It's not for everybody, right? You start to
Yeah.
have children, and the world changes for people, as your priorities shift, your priorities change, your performance ebbs and flows, your satisfaction with what you've achieved changes relative to what you're willing to give to get it, right? So there's also like a growing with the game that happens in these individuals, I think, that allows them to sustain that level of success. So to me, if you had to build the pie, I don't know exactly how much to which each of these ingredients, but I know they're all there to varying degrees. You have to age with the game, be well built for the game, divinely gifted to play the game at a high level, right? So how else could you ever say that if they do it because they're meant to,
Right.
they were
Yeah.
designed to?
Yeah. Because you bring God into the book, which
Yeah,
that was really really cool. And to your point, like the ones that I was around, they never lost that like that little kid feel. Where the game was an obsession, but not, I don't think it was a healthy obsession, right?
right.
Where it never got to the point of like, this sucks. Like, I'm just collecting a check. It's just a job to me. It was like, I love the game of baseball, and that never leaves those guys. Like, even the best of the best, like, you think, oh, they're just happy to make millions and millions of dollars. No, they don't, like, they care about that, sure. Like, they want to make money, but really at the end of the day, it's
Yeah,
that passion, that drive to be how great can I be at this game? And I love this game so damn much. I'm gonna put everything I can into it. And those were the guys that, like, when you go, like when I was in the Dodgers clubhouse for a little bit, um, you're looking around, you got Hall of Famers left and right, and it's just like these guys want to be there. They're not there to just be there. They're there to be great, and they're there to to leave a legacy, and it's like their lives almost hinge on it in a healthy way. I know that
Mm.
we don't want to be something that defines, who you are, but it's really unique to think about, and they never lose that like that travel ball feel of like waking up and and being excited to play a baseball game, you know?
Yeah, I'm reminded. I use this distinction a lot, and it ties a little bit to like the concept and idea of fulfillment.
Hmm.
And fulfillment is not in directly correlated with success. I've worked with a lot of athletes, people in general, who are highly successful, accomplished people, but are quite unfulfilled.
Yeah.
And that's a dangerous place.
How?
Like it's like psychologically, like in my view, it's better to have never achieved than it is to achieve and realize it didn't actually do what you thought it would do for you, right?
Mm,
The if then the goalposts of if I have this, then I'll be complete, right? And how I like to describe the difference, Bobby, is like many people will take their gifts and I'm reminded like 1 Peter 4:10 says, like we're all each stewards of what we've been given. I'm paraphrasing, obviously, but it's been a gift gifted to us, right?
mm,
Um, and so a lot of people don't actually treat it as such a way as though they're stewarding a gift that doesn't belong to them. They actually use it as something where they must use this gift in order to affirm my worth, right? Rather than
mm,
a gift, they use it as a tool or an instrument. Will say, I've been given this, and therefore I'm expected or required to do something with it in order to prove that I deserved it,
mm,
right? So the way I look at this is that sport ends up becoming a reflection of who they are. They use their sport and their gift to reflect back to them like a mirror. See, I'm worth it. My stats say I'm worth it. My status says I'm worth it. My fans say I'm worth it. My bank account says I'm worth it. Whatever it might be, I say I'm worth it because this fits, right? And the difference that you're describing is, at least of what I've found, and what I think you're touching on too, with what you know is in the Dodge clubhouse is the difference is those athletes who are fulfilled use their gifts as an expression of who they are rather than a reflection,
interesting.
right? It's an expression of what they've been given. They use it, they play, right?
Yeah.
The consequence doesn't inherently reflect your worth or who you are. It's a game. It's a kid's game. I'm pretty sure Pablo Picasso painted a whole bunch of paintings that he thought sucked.
Yeah.
But I don't think he ever thought that because he had a sucky painting, he thought he wasn't a painter or didn't deserve to be a painter or that he was a piece of crap because he painted bad.
Like having a bad outing. Same
Bad
thing.
things are going to happen. It's a game. It's like, this is how I express myself today. And that's how I found the shifting of how we make what we do fulfilling,
Yeah.
especially when it has arbitrary value relative to all the things that you're capable of doing with your life. Sport, there's a huge window of impact you can have at a community level. Generally speaking, it's a relatively arbitrary contribution. It's entertainment.
Right.
Um,
Right.
right. So that idea of that I'm expressing something rather than needing to reflect who I am through it changes your relationship with it in a way that makes it so much more fulfilling. Unfortunately, a lot of us don't recognize this until we're on the other side of it, looking for a new reflection, and we don't have the mirror anymore and are just stuck with all of these negative thoughts, feelings, and beliefs about who we are and what we should have accomplished relative to what we have accomplished. And we end up successful with no fulfillment.
That was well said. Very
Thanks.
well said.
Sorry, I'm going to I assume we're going now. Like,
Yeah, yeah, we're going.
podcast is going.
Yeah, it's been
Okay.
going. Yeah, we've been. I
Okay.
mean, this is great. Like
You
I,
think you'll cut this all up, I assume?
I probably yeah. I mean, well, I'll have. Did you meet Ethan when you came in?
No.
He did all of our social media stuff. He'll probably cut some of the stuff out, and I'll make sure like if you're not like comfortable with anything, we'll make sure we take it
Well, yeah,
off.
we started more our personal conversation and transition into some stuff. Let's get to this. Let's get to
Let's do
the
it.
bacon of it. What you wanted to cover here
The
more.
bacon of it. That's very Canadian of you, I feel like. The Canadian
Wow,
bacon.
we do Kate. Well, ironically, Canadian bacon sucks. It's just
Does it?
ham.
Yeah, it's chewy, right? Like it's
Well, Canadian bacon is just like ham that you guys fry in a pan. Like that's just ham. That's not bacon.
so bacon.
Canadian bacon is female bacon, so it's like actually like a pork loin that's brined and then rolled in cornmeal. But we call
Yeah.
it used to be. rolled in pea meal,
Uh-huh.
but it's in cornmeal, and yeah, you slice it and fry it. Like that's legit, like a brined pork loin. That's
Mm.
Canadian
I
bacon.
need crisp, if it's
Got
not
oh
crisp,
yeah,
bacon.
yeah, you
That's
got to
not,
fry that up. Got to
yeah.
be good. All
Um,
right, mate.
Go ahead. I'll let you kind of take I mean, I know we already kind of introduced some of this, but your early years in hockey. Talk about a little bit of uh, growing up, playing the game of hockey. It's obviously very different for you, being from Canada. Hockey, I think now is starting to really bloom and blossom in the States as far as becoming like a major sport. I love it. I think I've told you my wife played hockey when she was younger. Her whole family played hockey. My dad played hockey. I couldn't skate worth a damn, so I didn't play hockey, but I love the sport. I think it's awesome. Grew up in the DC area, so I'm a Caps fan. So floor is yours with your hockey career.
I would say I had a very common traditional Canadian kid hockey experience. Lived and breathed the game since you could walk.
Yep,
At least there's evidence to suggest, I wouldn't take my Gretzky jersey off when I was young. I was influenced, and um, yeah, found just like enormous joy and passion in playing and trying to emulate and fulfill those that I watched on TV, our stars, right? It's a very strong cultural component in Canada. It's certainly strongly interwoven into our, collective cultural fabric
sure.
of who we are. So you grow up with that, and even with the idea of fulfilling some of that national identity and pride in being a hockey player. So it's almost as though there's like a service component to country as well,
Hmm.
being a hockey player, and you fulfilling, a cultural, duty or rite of passion, passive, so to speak. So, had a pretty, I would say normal, average, youth experience. I wasn't, an amazing player at every level I ever played at. I was pretty average player, and just continued to get better, and also found that I had a unique streak in me that was willing to do things that other people weren't willing to do. Like when I, skipped my first concert to go to because I had a game the next night, and
Sure.
I'm like in like the eighth grade or something, or ninth
Yeah.
grade, or just everybody's going somewhere and I'm not because of this. And I started to recognize that that wasn't normal for a
Yeah.
lot of teenage kids.
Right.
And yeah, it started to become that passion, and where that passions, I started to have people identify that there was some capability there. There was an opportunity to grow, and once those two things came together, well, became singularly focused on achieving that. Yeah, just continued to get better.
Yeah.
As I talked about in the book, I was never the best player at the level. I just seemed to continue to get better where others stopped getting better.
Kind of a deep question here. So I skipped my senior prom because we had the state championship the next day. So I can, relate to that. Do you think that's because, well, you've already kind of said that you weren't better than everybody else as far as from a talent perspective, but do you think because, obviously you're probably one of the better players on the team,
Mm.
as was I, do you think that's more of I want to do this, or do you think that's more of a talent thing telling you you have to do that? Does that make sense? Where it's almost like, okay, well, I'm really good. I have a really big part on this team. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to go to the concert or whatever it may be, because I already know like I'm a better talent than everybody else, or is it because you really want to do that? How do you separate the two? I don't know if that question makes sense or not. Like,
Yeah, I think I
what drives
understand.
you? The talent, or is it the love of the game? What's the driving factor in skipping some of those things?
Well, to me, the underlying, well, the middle factor, because there's a factor below it,
Mhm.
is just a straight up discipline question.
Yeah. What you talk about in the book a little bit?
Yeah, like just the discipline is, for lack of, for of course, it is like my degree of commitment. What's my fidelity to the goal here, and what am I willing to give to make it happen?
Mm,
Right, that long term resolve, right, which I think distinguishes and differentiates a lot of successful people in general.
right.
And that in even you could look at it in many other ways. You could look at it from many other contexts. Like, I mean, even in when you look at successful couples, right? Generally speaking, You know,
Sacrifice. Yeah.
they've committed to something that may not be producing the outcome right now, but we committed a long time ago to something and are willing to have the resolve to see it through. Generally speaking, if that's not your worldview, well, then you'll probably consider different options when you're not getting what you're looking for.
Sure.
Both ways work. It's not a
Yeah.
judgment. I'm just saying that it
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
for athletes, it tends to be that way. So to me, it's like this overarching, discipline and commitment and understanding that decisions, behaviors have consequences, right? Dave Ramsey says you can have everything, you can't have everything at once, right? And that
Mhm.
that applies to teenagers as much as it applies to young adults, as much as it
Yeah.
applies to parents, and so on and so forth, right? So hard choices don't escape the talented. Talented people still have to make hard choices to get what they want. Now, the underarching part of that question is like, do I have to do this or do I want to do this?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And that's more of a like that self concept going back into, a little bit of that reflection versus expression, component, and managing that. And it doesn't mean it's an easy decision or it's not a bit of both, right? Like I'm sure there's a whole bunch for you, like of mixed feelings around, having to make that sacrifice. Right. Like that's not an easy choice. I mean, maybe it
Yeah.
is, maybe it isn't, but you're warranted to have mixed feelings about it. The point is you did an evaluation and chose what you were committed to over a short-term gratification that you thought was in the way between you and what you wanted.
Right.
Right. I
Yeah. I'm
would
just
assume.
curious because you hear those stories of like, oh, he was working out at midnight doing this and he was doing that, like any sports like success story of guys that work harder or whatever. I'm just curious, like, is it, what's the driving force there?
Well, yeah, that's important too, and also you learn as you mature as an athlete. Like I was telling you about my book club there. And I was reading The Count of Monte Cristo, just getting reacquainted with. I haven't read it since high school, but like uh, knowledge requires sorry, what is it? Learning requires time, but knowledge and wisdom require philosophy.
Hmm.
So as you age and mature, the concept of diminishing returns comes up too. So like just because you're committed and have this obsessive goal, like it doesn't necessarily mean that, well, you're better because you're working out at midnight and someone else isn't.
Right.
Right. As you mature, you learn, what the most effective strategy and utilization of your time can be that's actually sustainable, right? To align more isn't always more. Um, but the idea of a one-track mind relative to that ambition to seek out success in the athletic realm seems to be table stakes of those who go on to achieve great things.
Yeah.
Very few guys get there by accident.
Yeah. If it's meant to happen, it's meant to happen, right?
Well, that's the irony of it,
Yeah.
right? That's the irony is that it's meant to just you still need to have this unwavering commitment and desire and obsession to fulfill it.
Hmm.
Um, but that is not an indicator of success either. That is not, it's but a part of the equation. And, I
Right.
would argue like somewhat more insignificant than a number of other factors that you don't control.
Hmm.
Um,
It's more so
you
the
know,
act of doing those things,
well,
like the
yeah, it's
choice.
like you say in training camp, right? Like you say, like being in shape won't ever get you on a team, but it'll get you cut pretty quick, in a football environment or a hockey
Sure.
environment, some of the more athletic sports than what you used to
Not
play.
baseball. Fair enough. I
Right. So
mean,
nobody
not
ever
wrong.
made a team. Wow, they came to camp in great shape. Let's take that player, right? But a number of players like, wow, that player is not where we need them physically.
He's going to fat camp.
It
Yeah.
makes it makes our decision a lot easier on a roster tie,
Mm,
right? So I kind of look at that obsessive quality and drive and commitment, to achieve and be great, is the equivalent of staying in shape. There's a number of other factors, in play as well. It won't make you great, but it's hard to be great without that.
sure. Yeah. No, so with that fulfillment, like when you got drafted, right? Um, did you feel like that was it for you? Like what were the emotions like for you, I guess, getting to that? Because, talking to a lot of people that have gotten drafted in whatever sport, right? Like the best ones are the ones that think, okay, this is just a start, like cool, like, what's next? It's not, oh, I got drafted, this is it, this is all I wanted, right? So what were kind of those
Yeah.
emotions for you like that night or day, whatever?
Um, yeah, I have a unique experience with the draft. The draft wasn't a particularly positive experience for me. I dropped about 45 spots,
Yeah.
60 to 4. 40 to 60 spots on draft day.
Yeah.
Um, Obviously,
82nd, right?
I went 82nd overall. I was ranked top 20 to 40.
Yeah.
That was my expectation and had good evidence, obviously not that good, that I would go in that range. So, it felt like an absolute, like it was a devastating day,
Yeah.
right? In that respect, that required, and I think, set the tone. Like if you thought that was devastating or hard, like,
Just wait.
just
Hmm.
wait, right? Like, and hindsight now looking at, what it's like to play in the minors for 6 years and then, go up and down and play the game at a professional level for 15 years. You're like, oh, dude, draft day, just put the hat and jersey on and,
Yeah.
smile. It's great. It doesn't mean anything.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
but on that day, it's hard and it was an inflection point for me. So by no means did I think I made it. Um, it was, clouded by, whether it's self and others' expectations and not meeting those. It was, one of the first challenges, if you will, of a professional career for me, which the landscape was dotted with as we went. But I look back at it, and it was necessary. It started to shape, who I am, and it was an opportunity for me to look at what was a setback, adversity.
Hmm.
I talk a little bit, as we get to the book, talk about what it's like to have other people not believe in what you believe about yourself.
Hmm.
Um, well, got kicked in the face by that when you get, passed over, 81 times before your name's called. That's exactly what it is. What are you going to do with that?
Yeah.
Right. Well, I
How do you
trained in my
respond?
draft hat for like 4 years straight. I didn't, the same hat they gave me. I said, I'm not doing anything but working out in this hat. And
Really?
it was pretty disgusting.
You still have it?
No, I don't have it, thankfully. Put to bed. I didn't need it as a motivator after a while, but
Yeah.
use it as just like a reminder to take that adversity and to look at it in a way to fuel and say, well, what are you going to do about it? Um, and that was the start to what I'm actually like very grateful for because that's more reflective, I think, and you might agree as well, of the professional athlete experience than the big celebrations.
Yeah. No, I had like my story is very similar as far as how my draft went. And it's you quickly realize, like you said, it doesn't really matter. Like if you look
Mm.
at baseball players, I don't know how it is in hockey, but there's tons of guys that weren't even drafted that make it, or super late picks that make it, right? It's how do you deal with those type of things and allow them to shape you in a positive direction, I think, where, that adversity, like you getting kicked in the teeth that night sucked, but okay, well, what am I going to do about it? Right? Like, how am I going to
Yeah,
respond to this adversity? And
yeah,
it goes to every cliche that we can talk about, being comfortable, being uncomfortable, all that stuff, right? It's I don't know. They are cliches, but they are real, and that kind of shapes in every form, business, sports, life, relationships, whatever it may be. Like you're saying, it doesn't really matter what the situation might be right now. What's it going to be in 2 to 3 years, 5 years down the road, right?
yeah. I had a great coach say that, we're not born winners or losers, we're born choosers.
Hmm.
And it is the truest form of freedom. Yeah, no, we can't do anything that we want, like you can't do anything that you want to do or put your mind to. There's limitations in our environment, and our capacity, and our genetics and life circumstances. But
Yeah,
generally speaking, with everything we're given, we have the abundance of freedom to choose how we interpret it and what we
right.
do next.
Yeah,
Um, so no matter how, boxed in you think you are, you still have freedom.
yeah. The ability to choose.
Yeah.
You will.
And that's hard for athletes. You see it with the young ones. You know, they have this idea that, well, it's again, it goes to this if then, that, well, once I get this, then everything's golden. And then, once I get, my D1, then I'm on cruise and or once I grind through this college schedule and get drafted, I'll cruise and everything's good. Or, once I get, my 8 year, $65 million deal, then I'll cruise. And like,
Doesn't work.
it's just moving the goalposts. It's the same cognitive challenges, and you deal with, generally speaking, the same things, and um, albeit with very different contexts. But that is the game that is almost
What's
by
the
design.
what's the best strategy for that? Because I feel like that's something that I would imagine every human's going to go through, or at least think about at some point, right? Like, oh, if I get I'll be good once I get my $85 million deal, or I'll be good with this, I'll be good with that. Like, how is that something that's just hardwired in human nature or a certain individual, or is that something that you can overcome to where, or is that just a really special trait that only a select few people have?
Um, well, I often like to think that if you're not good without it, you'll never be good with it. If you're not complete without your accomplishment, the idea that that accomplishment will complete you is a fallacy,
Hmm.
right? So there's lots of different ways to do it. I don't know if it's the best way, but find a way to understand and reflect that you're whole, right?
What do you mean?
And it's well that if we're looking at well if then the if thens always seem to say that if something outside me comes, I will be completed, or it will remove a certain um, challenge that I'm facing. And that may be true superficially, but if it comes down to like a self-worth component, right, a fulfillment component, then I'll be fulfilled. You realize that you're searching for the moon in the pond, as the Buddha would say, right? Like it's an illusion. That's not real.
Right.
Um, so, the idea of wholeness and fullness of who you are and um, is critically important to having any of this actually mean anything for you, because until then it's just a reflection or an if then transaction. There's no joy in that. It's too
Hmm.
much on the line to experience joy, right? It's too transactional,
Yeah.
in my experience anyway. And so if that's how I look at working with athletes. I don't work with Spider-Man. I work with Peter Parker. Right. And,
Fair.
I don't know anything about being Spider-Man. Like you asked me, like, work with a major league pitcher. I've worked with pitchers. I don't know anything about how to make them throw harder. I just, want to better understand them holistically and understand all the factors that contribute to who they are and what they're working through. Generally speaking, when they put the mask on, they're their freest anyway.
Yeah.
That's where they thrive. Like Spider-Man on a web is as free as he'll be. It's when he comes back to the world of, Aunt May and the death of Uncle Ben and Mary Jane and his
That's
boss,
where.
J. Jonah Jameson. That's where, life can be difficult, and, making sense of all of it in between and the wholeness. Um, and with great power comes great responsibility, to bookend the Spider-Man analogy, and
So,
the weight of those gifts as well. So,
yeah.
that's how I look at it, as far as like, be mindful of the cognitive traps that you set for yourself,
Yeah.
because usually if you think that something else will complete you, you're
Oh,
probably mistaken.
yeah. No, I remember you used that with me because I was kind of on my way out, and it was really, it resonated. Like, that is when you feel like you're free. When I was pitching, it's like I'm free. I'm not really worried about anything other than it's like playing golf for me now, right? Like, I'm not worried about anything else. I have to complete the task at hand. That's when I can be my best version of myself, or at least, I thought so. And yeah, it's just interesting because I wish more people could understand that, you know. Uh,
Mm.
and I think that's something that I hope resonates with people if they're listening to this. But
Yeah, and it's not that you won't face performance challenges. Like,
yeah, right,
we can work through those. The idea of like, different thought patterns, different experiences sticking in your mind, different things that you can tweak, right? But those tweaks won't fix the other, right? We kind of go bottom up instead of top down. I see those as more superficial things
yeah,
that we can address and are important to address and are very addressable and
right.
important to the athlete experience, but you can't fix, the foundation from the top.
What was your transition like? What was
Mm.
you went from being an NHL player to where you're at now, and it's so interesting to me because you're such a empathetic, kind-hearted person working in psychology, but you're also this badass, defenseman that wanted to take somebody's head off at times, right? So it's like that's like that ultimate Jekyll and Hyde,
Yeah.
where it's. Have you always kind of? Is it? Did you turn into Spider-Man when you hit the ice, and were you always the way that you are now outside of hockey, or was it like this was something that has kind of evolved over time to becoming Dr. J. Harrison, you know? Like how is that like for you? Because it's such a 180, not in a bad way, obviously. Like it's incredible what you've done. It's just it's so different.
I think that is a compliment. Thank you.
Yeah,
Um,
it meant to be.
yeah,
I
I
meant
mean,
to be.
teammates
Yeah.
used, yeah, I know. Teammates not didn't call me Spider-Man, they called me Wolfman. Because the
Why was
wires would touch sometimes.
that?
Um, it's like I just this capacity that I mean, I guess that what's the quote? I don't know who said it, but I contain multitudes. A
Okay.
whole bunch of contradictions exist within me, and
Sure.
part of my journey that I'm so thankful, and part of that adversity that we talked about as you look at like the big picture and the story of the art of becoming, who you are.
Hmm.
The adversity led me to look for other ways to understand what I truly had to offer, what my gifts were. Right. I found a profound love of education and pursued that while I was a professional athlete. I didn't see it as life after hockey, like, and, or
Before,
athletes who do,
were you like that
sorry?
before too? Were you like that before too? Before like your hockey career, or was it just something that like something sparked within your playing career that you pursued some education stuff?
Well, no, I enjoyed learning. I'm a naturally an inquisitive person.
Sure.
If anybody knows me, I'm very like conceptual. I love the idea of seeing how things link together. I ask why way too many times. Just ask my wife. She'll tell you I ask why too much and want to understand things that have, sometimes no reason.
Hmm.
Naturally leads someone to the field of psychology, though, if you're interested in why, especially as it relates to people. So, I had a love of education that was stimulated through hockey. It came together too. It wasn't an either or, especially my junior experience where I played. We were all highly encouraged to pursue the highest level of academics that we could. And if we didn't meet that standard, we were held accountable to it. So if you were a 75, you were a B student, well, you were expected to get Bs. But if you were an A student and you came back with a B, you were going to hear about it and you were going to hear about it in front of everybody. So it was an academic accountability as well, which I liked because I liked to learn. I had some great mentors in school. So as my career and I got established as a pro, I started to continually pursue through that adversity. I just had to get my mind to something else that made me feel good,
Hmm.
that I was contributing to something that was mine. And being a naturally good student, I just started to chip away at things. Again, that education then opened up a different social network for me. People saw me differently. So I like to think that I really started to acquire a different kind of social capital. And that social capital led to more behavioral or psychological capital, right? I started to see myself as more capable. They saw things in me and potential in me that I maybe didn't see of myself if I only saw myself as a hockey player or as a husband or as a father or whatever the identity hat you might put on.
Sure.
So I started to find my niche and realize, and people started to see, abilities within myself that really excited me. Now, the unique thing is I'm doing this as I'm being a professional artist, and it's like, wow, that's kind of distracting. I'm like, actually, it's not at all. I found enormous resilience in this trajectory, right? It allowed me to balance the ups and downs, the roller coaster of a professional athlete career. Like I still had something that was mine that I was contributing to and developing that gave me hope, optimism, resilience about the future. These are the psych cap things that we talk about, right? And I found that I was coming to the rink fresher. My relationship with the game changed in that I was able to let it be what it was. So whether I played great or I played very poorly, I had something to neutralize that effect, that emotional impact, right? We call that an athletic identity. We call it like negative affect, right? Like generally speaking, the more your athletic identity, you identify with it or it's exclusive, play good, play bad and bad is kind of the emotional trajectory that emotion relative to performance shapes your experience, right? And athletes who seem to actually have a disconnect, how they how they are feeling relative to their play, if they aren't as related, they tend to actually function better psychologically and play better.
Hmm.
So the advice to literally, if you step away from the game, you'll play better. It sounds counterintuitive, but it's actually very good science to do so. So I found this enormous strength, and sure enough, my game took off.
Yeah.
Started to play at a higher level, achieving levels that I never thought possible for my game and for myself. And did I stop? And said, no, I doubled down on the education component. So I like to say to a lot of athletes now, I ended up, my research is in this space and it demonstrates athletes who do more things outside their game, specifically professional athletes. In my research, I've looked at NFL players, Major League Baseball players, and NHL players. Um, North American professional athletes, generally speaking, athletes, regardless of their age and career status, who are doing more things outside the game tend to function better psychologically. They have a greater sense of well-being.
Mm.
And my connection is, well, if you're experiencing a greater sense of well-being, you're putting yourself in a better position to perform. We're going bottom up here, not top down,
Yeah.
right? So I like to say to these athletes, what is like, it's kind of like investing in tomorrow pays now is the mindset, right? Like normally, if you look at it like, oh, well, this will benefit me in my transition, which may be 5, 10 years away. Well, there's a limited, gain or accrual of assets relative to that. That's nice, but I get no enjoyment or benefit from that now. I have to discipline myself to do that, right? Because I have to, delay the gratification. The win is down the road, right? Whereas in my mindset, I was like, no, actually, I'm getting an enormous amount of benefits today that's allowing me to be the best player that I can be today, right? So that set the table. I wanted to share that because I think it's so important in a hyper-focused world of sports specialization,
Yeah.
um, athletic identity, being focused at, like 10 and 12 years old, and sports being used as an excuse not to do more as opposed to, the thing that you have to do more because you're an athlete.
Hmm.
Go read Boys in the Boat and tell me any of those like were like being an athlete was glorifying to them that they got to do less. Like that crew woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning and did their janitor job before they got in that boat. Like being an athlete was a privilege that came above and beyond their academic and vocational requirements. It wasn't something that bailed them out of having to work hard in other areas of their life.
No, that's
Right.
really well said. You talk about that in the book, like, sports specialization and things, and we'll talk about that. I think that's really well said. Yeah, it's just interesting to me because, like, when you're saying those things, like, I'm looking back on my career, and it's like I wish I would have played more golf while I was playing, right? Because like I've found that
Right.
to be something that's like and we've talked about it, that's like my 4 hours or whatever it is to get away, not worry about anything. I'm worried about hitting the golf ball and trying to score. That's it.
Mm.
And it's it's wild to me. Like, you're a busy person. I'm a busy person. We have a lot of things that go on. Um, how refreshed I feel after that. Like I feel
Mm.
like I'm a better husband. I feel like I'm a better coach. I feel like I'm a better operator of the business. Like it's, like taking care of yourself, right? Like, that we talked about the discipline aspect. It's, are you taking care of your health? Are you working out? Are you doing those things? And it's finding those ways to better yourself to then better every other aspect in your life as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great point. And I mean, one of my consulting company is called Work In
Uh-huh.
for a reason, which reflects. It sounds like that's what golf is for you. It's not working out; it's working in,
Hmm.
right?
Then that's why
And
that's what it was. That makes sense. Yeah.
right, and yeah, like finding those things that are recovery focused, but still seen as contributing to performance. It's a hard part for generally successful people who are workaholics and don't like to relax,
Yeah.
right? They feel like you have to, do some sort of, like mind, trick on them to, grab a book and read on the beach, right? They can't do it. And actually, sometimes it's destructive because they just end up angry at themselves for doing it,
That's
right?
how I
Because
am,
they can't,
man. That's how it's like. I
right?
feel like if I'm doing nothing, I feel like if I'm watching TV, I'm like, oh, I got to be doing something else. Like I almost like guilt myself into
Yeah,
feeling bad about not being productive or productive in my field or in my space, right?
right.
That's something I struggle with. So,
Right. It's a challenge because like we talked about, it's necessary for success, but also can lead to burnout and creates challenges with sustained performance,
mm,
especially in a phase of life where you are now where there's no seasons, right? Like, it's one thing to go from 0 to 100 for 6 to 8 months at a time and then, do nothing, or relative to
space.
that,
Yeah, right,
that
right.
psychological load, right? Um, when we talked about transition now, like there's no in season, off season anymore. It's much more of a longer race that you have to run that, what I call it pace, which is always I would say as we asked about my transition, certainly one of the challenges in establishing as a former professional athlete is a pace, right? How do I come and find a sustainable degree of effort, ambition, um, quality control, holding yourself to a certain standard,
Sure.
relative to how priorities in your life has shifted and what success actually looks like in this new phase of your journey,
Yeah.
relative to what, professional athlete success looks like. They're very different. And if they don't, um, well, you're probably back in sports as a coach or in a development role. Um, right. or you're going to face some significant challenges relative to, again, pace.
Yeah, no doubt. That's for sure. Like I feel like it's almost like a constant sprint, and then it's like trying to back off of it at times.
Mm,
Um, yeah, because it is very different. I mean, I never thought of it that way, where you have this psychological and physical load for 6 to 8 months, and then all of a sudden, obviously you still have to train, like, do things that pertain to your career, but you're not actively competing. Um,
yeah,
yeah, that's an interesting point. I never thought of it that way. Talk to me a little bit about the first line program that
sure.
you NHL. I think that's cool for you because it keeps you around the game and around the NHL as a whole. And what does that all encompass?
Yeah, so one of the great privileges I have in my second act is I'm a psychological consultant for the NHL Players Association, which is the
Hmm.
players union. Represents, for those who don't know what that is, it's the union that represents the body of players and their collective bargaining rights. But beyond that, we also play a very important role and have a mission to enhance the quality of our players' lives, both while they're playing and beyond. So I get to serve in that capacity and supporting our players across a number of different contexts, whether we're helping them, achieve their best life through sports, starting to explore what their life looks like professionally beyond the game and how they transition, and if they even need support, relative to their mental health or behavioral health or their families. We have things in place that are collectively bargained to get players to resources that they can
Great.
utilize and trust. So getting to see players across that context, as you said, gives me the ability to stay connected. I collect new teammates, I like to say, without having to go out there and pay the price to do it,
Is
which is
anybody
really nice.
you played with still playing right now?
Oh yeah, there's a lot. Not a lot of them. There's a few of them out there though. The captain of the Hurricanes, Jordan, and I are very close. We play together here in Carolina. But first line is something that we developed to be more proactive relative to mental health education and skill development. So part of the process of understanding our players is like what would be a good utilization of our time, efforts, um, and resources to support this area. Is this an important area to you? And doing a lot of research with our players, understanding where they come from. We know that mental health is very, very important to them and to their families. We know 1 in 4 people experience a mental health challenge at any given time. It may never be you, but it may be someone that you know.
Sure.
And all of them want to play a positive role in the lives of other people who may be going through hardship. And two of the biggest challenges that exist, and this isn't just in our game, I think this happens on a society level, is one, they don't want to be judged if it's them who's going through that. And two, they don't have the confidence to feel as though they can be effective if someone ever brought what they were going through to them. The classic, I don't want to say the wrong thing.
Right.
Right. So these two things were the biggest barriers and impediments for us to have mental health conversations in our game. So we decided collectively, well, that is actually the sweet spot for us. Where can we support our players the most? And it's how can we optimize and create a greater opportunity and confidence around where those decisions or those conversations, excuse me, can happen. And we call it the first line because our players are our first line. They're talking to each other about everything anyway. They spend an enormous amount of their lives together, whether they're on planes, buses, meals, at the arena, away from the arena. So what we wanted to do is cultivate an environment and understanding that if a player felt compelled to share what they were going through, he would feel comfortable that he would be received. There'd be a psychological safety in
Hmm.
talking to a teammate, and that teammate, when approached, would have the confidence, knowledge, and understanding of how to support that player in the moment from a peer-to-peer perspective and direct them and help them find the resources that could be most helpful at the time. So we call that first line. What we did, we partnered with the Mental Health Commission of Canada, which is a really cool non-for-profit government organization in Canada, and we built a customized, what I call mental health leadership program. We call it a leadership program
Sure.
because it's about being a mental health leader. It's not about being a mental health professional. It's about being an effective friend, teammate that extends beyond the rink. It can be applied to being a husband, a brother, a son, a nephew, whatever it might be. It has broad applicable skills. We see it as a life skill for our players. It's not just a workplace thing. It's a benefit of the membership and an individual skill. So we set out to work and build this program, and the program basically gives our players the capacity to understand mental health, what it is and what it isn't, how to identify signs and symptoms of optimal and declining mental health, and then begins to give them some fundamental skills on how we talk to each other about mental health, or how would I support someone who may be going through a challenging time. Nothing incredibly like, magical poof, this is how it's all fixed, because it's not an easy thing to do, and it takes practice, it takes time, and sometimes there are no answers. But how to hold a space for someone in that. And it's been an incredibly successful program thus far. We've launched it 2 years ago. We already have 1 in 4 players in our league has taken the training, and
Oh,
as we like to think, is what we call first line ready, right? Which has the capacity to advocate for themselves and others, and knows where the resources are relative to the health and well-being of each other. So it's something that I get to engage the players with, every year. And is, I think, really, really important in allowing and supporting our players to live their best lives through the game, rather than sacrificing their best lives to be hockey players.
no, it's great. And so when are are like there designated representatives for this then that the team knows about, or is it kind of just you hope to train the whole entire league to where it becomes a place of just like openness and communication? Because I feel like kind of we talked about it where the NHL is such a tough guy sport. Um, it's interesting to talk about mental health with these guys because it has a stigma and it still has a stigma of like, oh, you're being soft, right? Like what is kind of the goal with that, I guess? Is it to train everybody in the league or to have a couple representatives or what is that? What's the long
Well,
term?
yeah, we started like with the idea of having some visible representation. It's not a new concept. Like on campus, there's like I can't think, it's like a red or green bandana program, like some sort of visual representation that this person has at least been trained in some form of psychological safety or first aid, and is open to you coming and talking to them, just to reduce that barrier. So we use different things for those guys who have trained. We have a very unique pin that we have for players that they wear on their suits. We also have like decals, that they can put like on their locker, right, to
That's cool.
demonstrate they have our first line logo. You can put it on your phone, just like a reminder that I'm available if you want to talk about something. Just pull me aside. Of
Hmm.
course, the goal is that, yes, we have an entire membership. When you think of the vision, is, everybody is mentally fit, ready to thrive, and willing to support each other, right?
Hmm.
It becomes a skill that everybody is invested in. That's why we call it leadership,
Yeah.
right? And it enhances your capacity to be supportive, to support yourself and support others. It becomes interpersonal table stakes relative to living well and advocating for other people. And yes, while there are stigma relative to mental health, and certain people experience stigma differently. I'm always inspired and refreshed by the courage our players have who do come forward. And it's my hope that they become validated and affirmed when they do come forth. Um, and the more players we have who are trained and understand mental health, the less tolerance we'll have for stigma. We'll be able to
Yeah.
call it out,
Yeah.
because the collective understands, and that doesn't work here, that doesn't fly here, right? So when
Hmm.
someone might be going through a difficult time and you call them soft, right, while they're not there, I'm calling you out on that,
Yeah. Like that's not
right?
okay. Yeah.
That's I think you're missing something. I don't think you realize how silly you sound,
Yeah. Right.
right?
Right.
So that to me is how we change the culture from the inside,
Hmm.
hold each other accountable to that standard. And there's just been an enormous amount of buy-in from the players. Like it's only been successful because the players have said it's important, and it's completely voluntary. No one has to do it. We look at it as a part of our professional development program,
Yeah.
right? That gives players resources to thrive in and outside the game. And players are utilizing it, which is really, really exciting, to be a part and communicate and share that part of their development with them.
Something I wanted to ask too, and I want to talk about the assessment a little bit, that
Sure.
you come up with, but are you are you turning away players like that? Like maybe they go through some of the stuff and it's like, ah, this might not be a good fit. Or, by doing the assessment that you've created, or is this
Hmm.
something that hey, everybody's welcome? Because again, like I don't know, but I feel like if somebody's actively seeking you out to do that, then I feel like they would be a good fit. But at the same time, like you want to make sure that this is a really, really quality program that is, investing in bringing in people that are highly skilled or potentially could be highly skilled in this area. So, what does that process look like?
Yeah, well, the program is like first line is really about mental health competency.
Okay,
And we look at it as like a captain in the league told me, when we did first line, he's like, well, I mean, if you can't talk about this stuff, you can't really be a leader in this league anymore. In the world that we live in the 21st century, mental health falls under the umbrella of being a leader. You have to be comfortable talking about it with people, and you have to be in touch with who you are and yourself and be able to go there. You can't just say we don't talk about that here anymore. And I thought
agreed.
that was pretty affirming, right? So, we look at it as a life skill, for our players, and they'll determine how they want to use it and if they use it and to what degree it inspires them and what they want to do or choose to do with it. We simply want to, plant those seeds and give a little water
Right.
on them and allow them to be created to go out there and do everything that they can do with their skill sets. Um, yeah, so you talk a little bit about what a big part of my practice, with professional athletes and military is I do a lot of assessment work, specifically around uh, generating self-awareness, identifying, the unique characteristics relative to that person that makes them successful and aligning them for success both inside and out of sport. So, certainly, we see players who are more behaviorally science oriented, who would thrive in things like that.
Hmm.
But we're able to connect an athlete's success through that assessment process and then help them to start to expand that footprint beyond the game as well, regardless of where they're at in their career. It just becomes a great data point and objective measurement where athletes can start to align with other people who were built like them and have similar interests to them, and then can start to explore that from their platform as a professional athlete rather than waiting till life after sports, where
To figure it out.
unfortunately your social capital goes way down.
Hmm.
Um, you know, um, so we want, players to leverage their athletic exposure to do as much as they can. Yeah, most recently, I've been working on a project we call A3, Academic and Athletic Alignment, to help, younger athletes and families specifically who are facing, difficult decisions, relative to, where am I best suited to pursue my athletic opportunities that align with my academic interests, and how can I both support my academic understanding of who I am and where I'm built to thrive beyond, school into a vocational setting while still maximizing my athletic development.
Yeah.
So this is a unique tool that will be hitting the market very, very soon for families to help recognize and understand their children better. I think a big challenge of our world today is we think we know our kids, and we haven't actually talked directly about the developmental dilemma, but there is a section called KYC. There it is, baby. Um, KYC is generally in business is know your client, but in sports and child psychology, it's know your child, and that's
Hmm.
how I look at. So some of us actually, interact with our kids every day, but may not actually fully understand how they're wired and built, and this can give us an opportunity and confidence to talk about that and call things by name. Whether it be how they like to learn or how they like to work or how they're motivated or what inspires them or how they relate to people. There's a way that we can, gain an understanding around that to increase the communication. And then, of course, how am I well built? Leveraging, a number of years of working with professional athletes and elite athletes. Athletes can start to see, well, what is unique about those who tend to play professional and elite athletics for a long period of time? What can I learn from how their behavioral orientations may support my development? And what do I have in common? And what might be areas that I can develop?
Yeah.
To maximize my athletic success. So it's designed to be a tool to help, reduce some of the anxiety around that experience, to reorient young athletes and their families to say, hey, there's an enormous academic opportunity that exists for you through athletics, not just an athletic opportunity that exists through academics.
Mm.
Um, and how do I maximize and fulfill both?
Got it. Yeah,
Yeah,
let's move on to the book now because this is something that
sure.
I really want to talk about, and in my reading of it, I think it's fantastic, and what I do and with baseball, I think it's it it hit home for me in a lot of ways. Obviously, I don't have my own kids that are playing baseball, but dealing with parents and seeing a lot of the pressure that they put on them and the expectations that they put on them. Um, you worry about the long-term health, physically and emotionally and mentally of a lot of these kids. Um, so I want just, for you, go ahead and kind of what compelled you to write this book? Like, was there one instance that was, you saw a parent because obviously, your girl plays softball, right? Like, was there something that you've just been kind of around youth sports now more that you're like, this something needs to be said about this?
I think it's interesting. I wrote this at the intersection of being a son, a child, a professional athlete, a psychologist, and a father. Like all of these, like things, just
Like
like
seven-way stop.
try, yeah, like triangulating into all like what do all of my experiences from all these perspectives produce? If I had one thing to say collectively
Yeah.
about the experience of sport in general, and then more or less focusing on what it means for the youth game, that's what ultimately came out. And I wrote it remarkably quick. I like to say it's like
Really?
people always think like, oh, you write a book and it's like supposed to be like this capstone of everything you've ever thought and perfect. And I don't think writing should be like that. Like I kind of look at it like the way Neil Young used to write songs in the 60s and 70s. Like it took him like 30 minutes and the thing was cut and out. I'm not saying what I produce is the equivalent of what Neil Young produces. I'm just saying the
Have to be
process
careful.
to which Neil Young used to produce things, I do too. The quality, not connected.
Got it.
Um, but this was just an expression in a moment of time of what I was thinking and what I was feeling and what I was experiencing. So the book is called The Developmental Dilemma, and it's built on this shared appreciation for the challenges youth sport presents many parents.
Hmm.
There is a developmental dilemma. I am going to be put in a position before I want to be as a parent where I have to decide whether my child is an elite athlete at the expense of something else they might like to do or be fulfilling to them, right? Does my child do competitive gymnastics or dance? Does that mean they can't swim and they can't do this? And I'm put in a difficult position as a parent. Just the landscape of sports has changed in a way for better and for worse. And we go through a lot of the reasons and how sport has changed. To recognize that parents are put in a very difficult position. It's meant to empathize and connect. It's not meant to shame parents.
Yeah. You
It's
don't
just
have that
like,
feel in the book at all. Like I never read that as like you're telling what these people what to do. I feel like it's coming from a place of pure.
yeah, like you're in a hard spot. I
Yeah.
feel for you. I feel with you because I'm a parent too,
Yeah.
and going through these challenges. And so and so recognizing the reality of this, it's not the world that, I grew up in or generations before me. Sometimes, you hear people say, oh, well, when I was a kid, I played multiple sports and I turned out fine. Right. And I'm like, well, that was a very different time. Like for us hockey players, you couldn't find ice in July.
Right.
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 Now you can get on for 3 hours a day every day of the year if you want to, and some people are. So it creates a bit of a development gap where kids are getting very good very quickly. And what used to determine athletic potential really was athleticism and just your raw abilities. Like I could go out and make a soccer team without having any soccer training because I could run and had good hand-eye coordination. Like,
Sure.
oh, he'll pick it up quick. Now, yeah, a kid can't do that because we're evaluating soccer players on dribbling skills, how they see the field, soccer IQ,
Right.
right? So that kid, while he may have very strong athleticism and potential to be a soccer player, he's not polished where he needs to be to make that 11U club at the moment. Right. So that's, this push pull, this runaway train, and it's just a reality of the world we live in. So just to say your kid should play multiple sports, they'll be fine, isn't necessarily a full truth either. We do tend to see that high performing athletes who do make it to the highest levels tend to benefit from more diverse environments. But I don't think that's because the diverse environment contributes in any way. They were just always destined to be great athletes and they
Yeah.
tended to.
From the development, like
So
you said. Yeah, and like because
yeah,
I
so
think you mentioned a study in there too from I can't remember what the exact study was, but how it proves that guys, at least in today's generation, that didn't specialize had a higher ceiling.
right.
Yeah.
It suggests, right? That's how I read the data, and it's a very important caveat, right? With any social studies, like what we tend to see is those who go on to play at the highest levels tend to benefit
Hmm.
from a more diverse athletic environment, but that doesn't necessarily attribute a diverse athletic environment to going far, right? There are still highly specialized kids who will make it, and there's kids who will be late bloomers and who will make it as well. And so there must be other factors, right? is what we get to, that there's many ways to achieving the highest levels of success. And I reflected on this a lot because I just don't like pointing out problems. Generally, I have a pet peeve. Like there's that type of person out there who just points out what's wrong with an argument without providing any solutions.
Yep. Oh yeah.
You know those guys. All right.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So I at least like, well, I need to be able to do something about it to actually communicate. Well, what am I doing about this? I'm in this, but how am I choosing to change, and how can I help you through this challenging time? And I ended up coming to this insight. I was with a former athlete, professional athlete. We were driving around somewhere together, hanging out, and he has kids, very, very successful, very competitive athletes. And he was telling me about how his summer is going to look with all the camps they have to do and where they have to go and all this stuff. I said, you just stop for a second. What if I told you that uh, your son would play in the NHL no matter what you did this summer? I said, would that change anything in your life? He said, oh, that would change everything. I'm like, well, that's a fascinating thing. So I started to pull the thread on that, and I realized that a secret to unbind a lot of the challenges relative to this developmental dilemma and the challenge of the FOMCO, the fear of my child missing out, the
Hmm.
burden and anxiety of having to manufacture opportunity and fulfill, lest you be responsible for your child not making it because you didn't give enough, or you didn't put them in enough things, or you didn't push them hard enough. The freedom in that is a saying that I say: if your child is meant to, they'll make it.
Uh-huh.
And I came to this realization, and I adopted it for 2 years. I said, I don't know if this is true or not. I said, but if I'm going to actually put around this, I have to live it. So I tried it for 2 years, that mindset, and I found that it was incredibly liberating. The idea of if your child is meant to, they will make it is taking a position that's saying that I'm not responsible for where my child may end up with sport. I don't actually have an impact on that. That is a predestined, you can call it your child's self-actualization process, right? For the more faith-based people, you can call it their God-given and divine potential and path that they will walk, right? Most of the professional athletes I know got there in spite of their parents, not because of them anyway. Um, so I take it, and I'm very mindful is to like take it. It doesn't have to be true to work, right? Like even if you don't believe it, just try it. If you take that responsibility off of yourself, right? See what happens to your experience. So the burden of having to manufacture and ensure that all of this athletic potential is being satisfied and that you'll be able to continually produce it. What if that's something that happened on its own and you have these other things to worry about now, or to invest in rather than in worry about, right? How am I supporting my child? What can I do to give my child the best experience that they could possibly have? What's right for our family? And that's going to look different at every level, right? Some people, it looks right for their family to do the highly specialized environment. Some children do very well in that environment, right? Some families do very well in that environment. It can be a very productive environment for a very specific group of people,
Hmm.
but it's not a requirement, right? It's not something that has to be done. Another family's experience may look very, very different. And the unburdening of if your child is meant to, they'll make it, allows you to be satisfied with that, knowing that your child's potential will self-actualize and doesn't require you to do any more than what you're capable of doing in this moment. So if you can get them there 3 times a week and that's cool with your family, do it. If it's two, then that's what it is, right? Accept that you can do what you can do. And then through the book, we go through a number of things that actually, I found are unlocked if you adopt that mindset. Even if you don't fully believe it, you
Hmm.
give yourself a chance to see
Breathe.
the world and to see the game and to see their experience through a different lens.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I think so many people can benefit from reading that. Because like I said, I see it every day where it's we gotta do this, we gotta do that. And it's like, well, let's just take a step back, right? Let's be real here. And like I said earlier, you have that quote, if they're meant to, they're gonna make it. I think is on every page, it felt like. What would you tell somebody that just is, you know, doesn't believe in that, doesn't believe in self-actualization and is just hardcore, you have to work every single day, or you have to do this, you have to do that. Like how do you deal with those parents that are a little bit more stubborn in that?
Generally, I don't because they don't need me. Usually, my book is not for them.
Yeah,
Um, you
fair.
know, it's you know, I understand. Like this is but one way that I think, helps reclaim the joy of youth sports and ensures that we're investing and looking at the right outcomes, and protecting our children and cultivating our relationship with them through the game. And that's
Hmm.
what, really the mindsets are all about, like as we'll get to. But I understand. I'm not judgmental, and in that sense. Parents are going to make, their decisions in the based on the way that they see reality, and whether it's objective or not, to the trajectory of their children. So I just encourage them, like I do in the book. I'm like, just try it for a season and see if your experience changes just for you.
Yeah.
Um,
You talk with parents a lot? Like, I know you work with athletes and, but have you ever had a parent come to you and said, I'm really struggling with this, and work with them in this capacity?
in the mirror every day.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
No, it's yeah, no, it's I don't actually
Yeah.
get a ton of that awareness, which, hopefully, maybe the book can help stimulate some parents to move in that direction.
Hmm.
And, part of the takeaway is like, okay, well, my child is meant to make it sounds like, okay, it's like everyone gets a participation trophy.
Yeah.
That's not what you're advocating for, Jay. And it certainly is not, far from it.
Yeah, because even you said
Um,
in the book where it's like that doesn't mean that you don't, it doesn't diminish the work that goes into it, right? It's not about, oh, okay, well, I'll just be hands off and not do a damn thing. I think it's quite the opposite, really. To where it's
right.
allowing you to, it allows the kids to go out there and want to do it for themselves. And I think that's even stronger, right? Where it's not the
Well,
parent.
it goes back to our want to versus have to.
Yeah,
Are you signing your kid up to do these things because they want to and it contributes to you getting closer to your child and like you want to as well? Or do you feel you have to in
hmm,
order to keep up? It's a
right.
very different position. It's no different than missing prom,
Yeah, right.
right?
Yeah,
Um, and both reasons there could be a little bit of each, but an understanding of why we're doing things really helps us understand and make clearer decisions. In the book, I introduce, three mindsets. Like, what should we be focused on in sports
mhm,
then? Well, if my child was mentioning me, well, what should I be focused on? What am I looking for in sports then? And I come up with these three things, and I did a little bit of an exercise when I was younger in like evolutionary psychology class. And like, well, what role does sports actually play in society? Like, why is it still here from a social evolution perspective? What purpose does it serve in our society? Right. And if it was just to allow 3 or 4% of people to get really, really good at it to entertain us, we wouldn't have it at the community level. It would have burnt out a long time ago. It serves a much broader social function,
yeah,
um, to our development than just producing high performing people at it. That's kind of like I think, a bit of an offshoot, right? This is like a very special thing that, feeds back into building the community again.
right.
So I talk about these three mindsets, and I was important for me to identify that no matter what level you play at, cultivating these particular mindsets, growing into these mindsets is accessible, whether you play, in a rec league or you're playing at the highest levels of travel sports. These three mindsets are still compulsory, right?
Hmm.
And should form the foundation of what your child's getting. And if your child's getting them, they're getting what they need out of sport. And if your child's not getting them, I don't care what level you're at, you probably need to reconsider if this is meeting their developmental needs, right? So, and the first one I come out with is a competitive mindset, right? Sport allows us to learn how to compete safely. This whole world is about competition. We
Yep.
compete for attention against our siblings, at school, application process into universities, at every level of our life. There is a need to be able to compete, and sport gives us the opportunity to do that. The competitive mindset is really about inner agency, confidence,
Right.
right? That ability to have that sense of agency to impose my will on the environment in spite of other people trying to do it too. So it's really like a core foundational thing that I am capable, and I'm not deterred by other people wanting what I want.
Hmm.
right? And in that, there's an enormous amount of humility that grows. There's an enormous amount of sportsmanship, ironically, that grows out of competition, right? That you don't get to truly respect another until you've, proverbially gone to battle with them. Some of my, greatest friends were the greatest adversaries because of the enormous respect through competition,
Sure.
right? And then that starts to build outwards. So as we go from a competition mindset, we go to more of a I am capable mindset. So then how does that agency come to life as far as my capacity to be disciplined, to demonstrate accountability, to set goals, right? To self-regulate my life relative to the choices that I want for myself. Sport does that well. I think we've been all around that today with your examples and my examples of our youth and upbringing. Is that we took that inner agency and then started to use that to shape the world around us, right? And recognize that if I want X, I have to do Y,
Hmm.
right? Critically important for success, that delay of gratification, that accountability to self and others. Um, the final mindset is around fulfillment. And it's really about how do I connect all of these things to other people, right? How do I share these experiences in a way that allow me to fully express who I am through this gift of sport, right? So if sport is, building on these three mindsets and contributing to your child's development, is that it's exposing them to competitiveness, to do hard things, to show courage, right? If it's giving them the capacity to exercise a degree of influence over their environment, to delay gratification, remain accountable to things that they've committed to, and if it connects them into in a way that allows them to share these and connect them into a community and gain a social identity through that shared experience and shared struggle that sports ultimately contributes, like these are foundational skills to being a successful human being.
Hmm.
And you can access them ever. So if that's the barometer for a successful season, is my child learning how to compete, how to set goals and be disciplined and connecting through the shared challenges with other people, I can be pretty confident that I'm setting up my child to be successful in anything they put their mind to.
Yeah, no, that's extremely well said. You while reading it, you brought up the Nick Saban example, and I love Nick Saban. I think what he did in his career is remarkable. But something that he always talks about is that process-oriented mindset, right? Where
Mhm,
you a delayed gratification in a world where everybody wants instant gratification, right? Everybody wants the likes, everybody wants the comments, everybody wants this or that now, right? And we live in a society where I think that is unfortunately kind of the way that we're wired now, a lot of
mhm,
humans at least. And it kind of brings us back to that, okay, if I want this, it might take time, right? And I deal with this in what I do too, where these guys, oh, I want a PR today. Well, it's like, well, let's worry about PRing and throwing harder, 3 months, 4 months from now, right? I don't care about today. Like I want you to go out there
mhm.
and compete and be better on the field, right? Or whatever it may be. Don't. It's cool that we can do all these things and it's great, but at the end of the day, like, uh, well, what is this? Can we get 1% better every single day, right? That's something that was kind of instilled in me in college, where it's
Mhm.
about what you do on a daily basis, not so much what we do in the the instant, trying to search for that instant gratification. And I think, I want to talk to you about social media, and I don't know what your stance is on it, but I worry about it a little bit. I worry about what that's going to do for the future generations because you also have the quote in there, which is another one of my favorite quotes, which is comparison is the thief of all joy, right? And we live not only in an instant, in an instant gratification society, but we also live in a constant comparison,
Mhm.
where, what is this guy doing on Instagram? Oh my God, this guy in Florida is throwing 95, right? This guy in California is doing this. And I see how much it can hurt a lot of these kids, right? And it's a hard balance. It's a hard thing to kind of work through and really conceptualize, what this could
Mhm.
do later on down the road for a lot of our athletes. So, um, that's my way of asking, like, what do you think of all the social media and all the comparison that's going on, constantly? And it's worse in a lot of these travel ball organizations that are constantly comparing you to player X, right?
Yeah, I will caveat. I'm not an expert in social media or
Nor am
the
I.
influence
I
of,
just,
social media
yes,
on that. Well, just as a professional, or the impact of
sure.
social media on the health and well being of young and adolescent people.
Mhm.
But I think the research is pretty clear that there's an inverse correlation between how much time you spend on there and how you feel about yourself, generally
Sure.
speaking.
Yep.
And it's baked in part of the developmental dilemma,
Hmm.
because even working with many of these kids, I'm sure that you work with, like, well, I have to go sell myself.
Yep.
I have to post and do these things. It's a foreign thing to me, especially coming from a sport like hockey, where anybody who claims they can do something probably can't. Right?
Yeah.
There's like an inverse correlation between how much you say you can do and how much you can actually do. And the guys that you're really watching are the guys who don't say anything. Guys who come in and boast about what they can do in the gym or on the ice, they're not usually the problem that you have to worry about.
Right.
So social media is definitely a challenge, and as much as I would like to say, like, you know, ignorance is bliss, abstinence is bliss in this respect, it's not realistic in a lot of environments that we're in, especially in elite athletics now, especially in the female game, being the father of daughters, seeing how hard athletes have to work to promote themselves, to recruits and to coaches and things like that in order to um, be seen and advocate for themselves. And it becomes difficult to then not be so self-focused and self-conscious relative to all the other information out there can be particularly challenging. I would say, just some of the tips is with social media, like, start way slower than you think.
Yeah.
Um, I, I just generally, like, a personal policy is like 16, 17 years old at earliest, to start to introduce the idea of social media. Create a practice of responsible technology use before social media is a part of it, because it's so hard,
Yeah.
right? Like, you're working against biology and every form of psychology, ever studied. You're hopeless.
Yeah.
You're against it to think that you can, you know, um, be stronger than the algorithms working against you, right? They're designed specifically to tap into parts of your brain and psychology um that work against that. So you're starting slow and building a responsible technology habit in the house from a kid's perspective, I think is critical, even at the risk of feeling as though they're being alienated.
Hmm.
They're really not. um Everyone, again, it's part of that challenge and the FOMO, fear of my child missing out. One of my own personal philosophies that I have is that, if there's something you want or don't want for your child, you're going to have to fight for it, and it's not going to be comfortable. Have courage in that as a parent. If that's important to you, it won't happen easily, especially if it goes against the current of society. So take strength and courage in your convictions, and lead with that, and start how you want to finish, as my wife would say. One of the great parenting quotes that she has is start how you want to finish.
Hmm.
I do just share a story sometimes with parents who may feel that way. Again, just from our own personal experience and limiting, the access to social media to a more responsible age for our daughters. I asked my daughter, after about 2 years of having access to technology and not having access to social media at this point in her life, how it must be difficult. And she said, not really. I was kind of took back because I was feeling the pangs of guilt, the developmental dilemma in action with me. Like, am I depriving my child of all, and ruining their social life, and they're not connected? And she said, not really. And I was like, oh, tell me more. And she's like, well, I realized after a little while that I actually wasn't missing anything.
Mm.
I was still in the conversations, and all the important stuff I got face to face or through text with everything. Everything else is just kind of a distraction anyway. So I don't have any. And I was like, oh wow, um that's really refreshing. I know that may not be the case for everyone, but it did affirm a difficult decision, that we had and what we wanted for our children,
Right.
in our unique case. So responsibility and healthy habits, and there's some really great programs out there as well. I can probably link to it. I have
Yeah.
a colleague who teaches um, appropriate technology habits for adolescents, especially athletes, and she has enormous success with it. Um, but if it's something that you want to fight for and you believe for, well, you're going to have to do that as a parent.
Yeah. No, That's really cool that she said that, because you don't really know how it's going to be. Um, yeah, it's like that process, right? I'm sure everybody wants to be on there, all their friends are, and then all of a sudden to hear that, I'm sure that was like a really cool moment for you as a dad.
Well, yeah, kind of like, yeah, I never thought that would be the outcome because
Yeah,
still
right.
there's, of course, the trepidation, around making a choice that maybe was countercurrent.
Hmm.
But to have that affirmation, at least in her experience, my other daughters may not feel the same when I ask them the same question.
Yeah, right.
But I'm open to that as well. So yeah, it's a difficult thing to navigate for parents and children today in this world. Um, I live in a world, coming from psychology is to do no harm. So I take that with my children as well and consider all the things that I do for them and consider while something may be good in the short term, what are the long term implications for that and choose accordingly.
No, that's awesome, dude. That's awesome. That fired me up because it's something I feel very passionately about too. So that's great. Wanted to ask one more thing before we get out of here. I'm sure this will stem into more conversation, but something that you kind of mentioned it with that conversation is you have that fear, right? You have that
Mm,
fear going into that, right? You have that like initial like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? What is she going to think? What you have that when we have the fear, right? And you talk about a little bit in the book of like feeling fear and
mm.
what does that stem from? Like, is it a fear of failure? Is it a fear of letting somebody down? Is it just kind of an all-encompassing, you know, thing? Because, we can relate this to sport as well. Like, you're gonna have nerves, you're gonna have fear of competing, you're gonna have fear of failing, right? I think it all kind of goes back to the fear of failure. Um, how would you work with somebody that has um, that indefinite fear of failure, where it's like I can't, because I think that's the problem with a lot of athletes. And I don't mean it as like a problem, but it's something that holds a lot of guys back is like they're super talented, they have all the talent in the world, they can go out there and do it, but then all of a sudden the competition, the lights come on, and then it's like, oh my gosh, I'm so afraid of failing in this moment with everybody watching me with, all these external factors. What is some advice you could give to somebody that is maybe dealing with the fear of failure?
Well, it's a good question. Fear and anxiety closely related different things,
Hmm.
right? One in the immediate, one in the more distant, like of what could be impending.
Yeah.
Um, I think the idea of fear of failure is somewhere in between the two. It's not a pure fear response, right? And it's in an athletic sense, because if you were in true fear, you'd be in fight or flight. You couldn't, really execute what you're trying to do. And it's
Sure.
not like a bear's chasing you, right? Um, you're in this, gray area. It's really more anxiety, relative to that. And, I think an important thing when we dealing with anxiety is getting to the underlying root causes of the belief systems that are driving this impending sense of doom or loss,
Hmm.
right? Or whatever might be on the other side of that, right? If there's an expectation or a possibility that something incredibly negative awaits on the other side of this for me,
Gotcha.
right? So it's really hard to do that while you're in it, by the way. So like,
Very
we're not
difficult.
going to do that in the middle of an inning, and I'm not going to come out to the mound and work through that with you,
No.
right? We're going to do it when you're feeling okay. And we're going to actually like just dive in and understand. And as opposed to fighting against it, we have to work with it. We have to gain an understanding, right? You can't just fight your way out of it, right? You have to accept your way out of it,
Mm.
right? Because it's the only way it'll dissipate. So really starting to understand and do work and having is someone who is a very like effective listener, listening to just hearing a little bit about, you know, what exactly are you scared of, or what exactly is driving this negative feeling or emotion, and starting to drill down lower and lower and lower and lower and lower on that, right? Is a very powerful technique. Dr. David Hawkins is a great guy who's just like, his belief was just like, and then what? is what he would ask, especially around some of these very like visceral emotions like fear and guilt and all these different things. He's like, well, okay, well, I'm scared this will happen. And then what? And then what? And then what? Usually it ends up with you dead in a ditch somewhere, right? Ultimately, right, we end up fearing losing,
Right.
our existence and our meaning. And that can be very different to different people, but understanding and getting down to resolving the conflict that's generating a lot of that negative energy, right? And it could very well be I'm scared that I won't be loved if I don't play well.
Yeah.
It's a common one,
Right.
right? I'm scared that deep down inside I'll be exposed, that I'm not good enough and I'm not worth it. These are some, are more superficial. I'm scared that this won't happen and that won't happen. Some people have, or get caught more in performance loops around, I'm just thinking about missing the strike zone instead of hitting it,
Mm.
right? Forgetting that the universe is on your side. The best player in the world, hits it 3 out of 10 times on you. Like, I've never seen a position where the universe is more on your side than a pitcher,
Yeah, it's fair.
right?
Yeah.
Right. Um,
Yeah.
Half the time you could throw it and try to make him hit it and he'll still miss, right?
Oh, yeah. You get lucky a lot when you're throwing, man.
Right. So, just, you start to unwind those, and then, that creates an environment to challenge the reality of those belief systems,
Hmm.
right? What's driving these underlying, and that's just, very classic, cognitive behavioral psychology is understanding how our beliefs and our perceptions impact our responses, right? And if we change our interpretations of our environment and our sensations, we can have an enormous impact on the quality of them and the behaviors related to them. So, oftentimes it just requires, let's just go a little deeper and figure out what are some of the underlying beliefs that you believe around the consequence that's happening here. And then we can evaluate whether it's true or not, or how true it is. Maybe we can develop alternative ways to look at it. Maybe we can restructure it in a way that, is still important to you, but doesn't create as negative an experience. These are all ways, and the cool thing about psychology is that it's as much art as it is science, and every individual is different and thinks different and processes different and experiences emotions different, experiences performance different. So meeting people where they're at, but having a very sensitive listener who's good at asking questions is a really great way at it to open up and really explore what's going on underneath there. And generally speaking, if we can reposition our beliefs, we can certainly reposition our interpretation of the emotions that we're experiencing at the time.
That's awesome.
I say, I say to kids, I said, what's the difference between Christmas Eve and a big exam the night before, from an emotions perspective,
How you shape or what your, I guess, the perspective of it.
what you're expecting the next day,
Yeah.
right? It's still butterflies. I can't sleep. I'm tossing and turning. I'm preoccupied, right? But one is a positive anxiety because tomorrow I'm expecting really, really great things under the tree, right? And then maybe in that exam situation, I'm expecting to bomb,
To suck.
right? So the emotions are relatively similar from how we experience them, right, and what they feel like in our body, but our cognitive interpretation in the environment of how we're interpreting those emotions gives them their quality.
Hmm. Yeah. No, I completely agree. I mean, as a little kid, you hear the stories of people. I did it, like sleeping in your uniform and having the cleats by the bed ready to go because you're so damn excited. And then, like, that's a reason, like, I kind of knew, my time in baseball was kind of coming to an end where it was like, I didn't have that excitement anymore. Right. And you hear
Mm,
people all the time talk about that retired after a long career. They're like, yeah, I just didn't really have that feeling anymore,
mm,
and where that excitement and almost it became like dreadful at times where it's like, I don't know if I really want to do this right now. Like you
mm,
lose some of that excitement, those butterflies, and it's like, well, is this worth it? Is this something I actually want to do? So,
mm.
you know, I think that's really well said, and hopefully people can take something from that, like shift that focus. Like that's something that you get to do. It's something that should be exciting, that should be joyful. Maybe not taking a test, that kind of sucks, but you know.
Well, I think you end the conversation really, really well, I think, and tie it in a nice little bow because you, in your experience, reflected the choice, that it
Hmm.
was always a choice, right? It doesn't mean that things are going to be easy for athletes. Wanting to do things doesn't inherently make them pleasurable.
Yeah.
right? Right. Or knowing that this is good for me, right? Sometimes it is. Sometimes I'm excited to run, and other times I'm not as excited, but I never have to,
The choice.
right? Right. So, and that's I think an important indicator in that is that the experience may not always be positive, um, but having it driven from this alignment of what you want and what you want to achieve and what you want to do is really, really important to sustaining it long term. And if that's starting to wane at a young age, we also have to have the courage to face that
Mm. Yep.
and accept it as parents.
Yeah.
Way harder.
Way harder. Anything else you got going on, man? Anything that you want to talk about as far as like any new projects you got cooking right now? I obviously I love the book. I think I told you I want to sell this in my facility. I think so many parents can benefit from this and shifting their perspective. I just think it needs to be more discussed. I think it needs to be talked about and not feel like you're hurting people's feelings or judging or anything, because it's not, right? You're trying to help people. This is your life's work, and I think it's incredible because a lot of people need to shift that perspective a little bit. So, what else
Yeah,
you got?
well, yeah, no, I'll leave it at that. That's great. Stand by. I'll certainly share with you as, our A3 project, continues to develop and we start to gain traction in the, student athlete community. A lot of uh, athletes are weighing options and opportunities that they have in front of them athletically and academically, and how we can, reach that alignment and support them to be the best athletes that they can be. And of course, for anyone, if there's one thing in the book that stands out, if you can take one thing away, to me, that's a success. If there's just one small thing, that's what I measure success in this. In this is not, doesn't have to change everybody's life, but if there's one perspective that changes relative to your experience with your child or your child's experience or how you experience sports with them, I consider it an enormous success. And yeah, man, I want people to live their best life through sports, not sacrifice their best life to be an athlete. Seen it way too many times, was a victim of it. I think we've shared that a number of times
Mhm.
together, is that I want to see sports as an expression of people, not as a tool they need to use to reflect their worth to the world.
Jay, I had an awesome time, man. I love talking. I'm sure there's a lot of things that we didn't hit on today, but we got to do this again at some point. Um,
Have to.
Off camera where we can go get some coffee again and discuss life because I truly, I told you last time we talked, I think a few months ago, I leave our conversations kind of energized, and shifts a lot of my perspectives, and I learned a lot, and really grateful for you and our relationship, man. So this has been a lot of fun for me, so I really appreciate it. Thank you.
My privilege. Thanks for the platform. Happy to talk shop with you anytime. I really appreciate what you're doing for young kids as well, because you see their development holistically
Hmm.
and are looking to develop the whole human, through the sport. So thank you and the service that you provide young athletes out there too, Bobby.
I appreciate that, brother. Thank you. High Octane
Yep, my
Podcast,
brother.
everybody. Jay, you're the man. Thank you, brother.
Boom.